What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode on the Remote Front Office. If you guys are new here, to make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Today we are discussing the Western Conference. Again, this is pending all big name trades. For example, like a Lowry Markkanen trade or a Brandon Ingram trade. And this is going to be similar to the video we did last week of where we are ranking the West in actual 1 through 15 standings, as well as different brackets. I personally am more confident on the brackets than I am the actual standings. So I felt like this was kind of more of a way to show my thought process rather than, oh, I for sure think it's 1, 2, 3, etc. And more so, I think here's the group of teams that are going to finish around here. Here's the group of teams I think are going to finish around here. And I mainly started this because of the Western Conference, right? We do have a Western Conference where essentially 13 teams are competing for playoff spots. There is possibly a 14th team in Utah. We don't know quite yet. But for sure, 13 teams, I think, are on the rise and starting to contend for stuff, right? So let's start with the actual contenders of the West. So for contenders of the West, this is teams that I expect at least one of these teams will for sure be in the Western Conference Finals, right? First team I have is OKC. They traded for Alex Caruso, 3-and-D guy. They also signed Isaiah Hartenstein, who can allow their lineup to go big. Say you're playing in Minnesota and you want to play Hartenstein and Chet at the same time. Or you can revert to small lineups. You can have Chet out of the game at times. I think it just allows a lot more lineup versatility and just a general plug-and-play group that this roster didn't have last year, right? It felt like you were pretty set as far as who the 4 and the 5 were. There wasn't really much interchangeability down the stretch as far as those positions go. The next team I have up is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I feel like Minnesota, due to Anthony Edwards, I think with Team USA, we typically see guys take a leap. So with that, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Anthony Edwards take another leap. They did finish second in the West, so I'm not saying that that's going to take them to the 1 seed or anything. I just think that it will allow for more consistency. As the last 2 years with Rudy Gobert, we've seen a rather down year, we've seen an up year. I think we'll be trending more towards that upwards direction now with Anthony Edwards kind of blossoming into his prime self, right? The next team I have here, who very easily could be changed, is the Denver Nuggets. So the Denver Nuggets lost KCP to Orlando. They lost Bruce Brown the year before. And I think we are starting to see what the salary cap ramifications are going to have. And I just think that it's starting to become a headbutting point between the coach and the front office, right? The front office is drafting these guys the late first round, wants them to play and develop and get a chance to actually see what they are, right? Give me a chance to see what they are so I know whether I should be looking for that position still or I should be expecting these guys to be in the lineup for years to come, right? However, with older coaches like Michael Malone, they tend to rely heavily on their vets, right? Regardless. So I think we are now at the point where we're seeing the front office remove those vets to remove the temptation to play those guys over the younger guys. The big question will be the Russell Westbrook experiment. I understand it at points, right? You can essentially treat him as a smaller Aaron Gordon if Aaron Gordon's not on the court, where he's cutting. Maybe he's doing a give and go with Jokic where he's going to the rim. He's allowed to pick it up off the rebound and push it. It seems like it is a lot more about the pace for Russell Westbrook. I don't expect him to close games just because of the three-point shooting, but I do think it can be an addition, at least regular season-wise, to have Russell Westbrook on this team. The next batch is only 2 teams. Hold on, one more team. Forgot in the contenders segment. It's going to be the Dallas Mavericks, the defending Western Conference champions. I think they lost a little with losing Derrick Jones Jr. I also don't know how much Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington would have regressed back to the mean from the playoff time as far as the three-point shooting goes. But a year 2 for Derek Lively. Still have Daniel Gafford, Kyrie, and Luka. I think that this team is poised to, at least regular season-wise, be in this top 5 for sure. They didn't finish there initially last year, but I think for this season, I think giving them that full chance to have not, Trade deadline, we have to trade for 2 rotation guys, get them in the lineup, this, that, and third. I think this will be a much smoother season for Dallas, right? The one thing I will say about that is Kyrie Irving was relatively healthy last year, and he hasn't been the last couple of years. So we will see how that goes. Next 2 teams. I'm going to call this the comeback group. They finish lower in the standings for various reasons, and I think with a full offseason, they can regress back more to the mean that we expect them at, right? First team is going to be the Phoenix Suns. I think between Book, KD, Beal, and now that this front office has had actually an offseason to truly build around those 3, getting Tyus Jones, getting Monte Morris, bringing back Royce O'Neal, having a draft that they can actually choose in this year, different stuff like that, I think will benefit this team more than most people realize. I am curious as far as lineups go. Are you playing Tyus Jones with Beal, Booker, and KD? Because then who's playing as the primary defender? Different stuff like that does raise questions. But I think regular season wise, being able to stagger 2 of Book, Beal, KD, and a point guard, and somebody that can play defense in the center, I don't think will be that difficult. I think they'll be pretty okay. Next team I have in this group honestly could be higher. The Memphis Grizzlies. They had probably one of the worst injury luck years that I can think of here recently. Between Jaren Jackson Jr. missed time, Desmond Bane missed time, Steven Adams missed the whole year, Brandon Clark missed the whole year. Like at one point, I think their injured list was like 16 people. So, I mean, I really think that most of those guys will have better health, and worst case scenario, at least a few of those guys will have better health, and I don't think guys will miss an entire season, right? I think a lot of guys got shut down for a whole season because maybe they could have made it back at the end of the year, but at that point, there was no real benefit to that team, right? So I think all of that said, I expect this team to be much better going into next season. This next tier is going to be labeled the health tier. I think health really sways where these teams are, where they finish, if they're here, if they're maybe in the variance group, different things like that. So the first team I'm going to say is the Clippers. Personally, I think the Clippers might jump even lower than this. I just didn't want to start there here in August now. But I think with Kawhi's injury history, I expect a lot of this to be the Harden show. Granted, I do have decent role players, but I don't think you have enough to regular season wise carry this team anything much higher than around a play-in spot, right? So I think all in all for them. The Kings I'm going to put in health because at the end of last year, not having Malik Monk, not having Kevin Huerter really tanked the end of their season, right? They at least were on pace to have a chance to compete for a play-in spot, and then those 2 guys went down, and that all went out the window. With DeMar DeRozan there, I trust DeMar DeRozan's more of a healthier player. I'm hoping he meshes well. So that's kind of a concern for them. But I think Keegan Murray health is going to be really important. Keon Ellis, just these role guys that are going to be there to play defense and hit a shot occasionally. I think those guys, their health is going to be more important than, say, a De'Aaron Fox or DeMar DeRozan, right? Just because I think those guys are going to be staggered with Sabonis, and I think all those guys put together still get you enough regular season wins to at least remain a chance for a playoff spot, or at worst a play-in spot, right? Sorry, my voice is going. Last team in this tier is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. The reason for this is obviously a bunch of Lakers are going to be in trade rumors. You have a new coach this year. Also, last year was one of the healthier years for LeBron and AD at the same time since they've been Lakers, which is concerning because I don't trust LeBron's 40, and AD's always been not necessarily injury prone, but he's had stints where he's missed a significant amount of time, right? So I think all of that put together, you can't rely on the fact that those guys are going to play 70 games again, right? You have to expect those guys to regress a little bit more, maybe closer to 55, 60 games or so, right? And does this team have enough supporting cast to carry them through those extra 15 to 20 games that they will be without those guys, right? The next group is going to be the variance group. This is teams that either can outperform expectations or are missing a couple of key pieces, and I don't really know where to rank them, right? First team is going to be the Pelicans. Pelicans, as of right now, I believe their starting center is Daniel Tice, pending a Brandon Ingram trade. Obviously, if Brandon Ingram is traded for a quality center, it may boost this team up in the standings, as it'll kind of just make their roster make more sense. Trey Murphy can come into the starting lineup, and then I feel like it'll make this roster more so fall into place than where it is right now, right? The next team is the Warriors, again, pending a Lowry marketing deal. I think that this team is at best a play-in team. Again, you're relying on Steph, you're relying on Draymond significantly to just really focus on maintaining their health throughout the season. What we saw when Draymond went out last year, this team kind of sputtered on both ends of the floor. And I think that having the removal of Klay Thompson now, you're without the constant questions of, is Klay coming back? What do you do if Klay doesn't come back, etc. Obviously, we'll have that. We've had that a couple of times asked this offseason. But I think all in all, it will be more of a once we get into a couple months in, it'll be more about this team now. And I think this team now is better without Klay Thompson than they were with Klay Thompson last year. Next team here is the Rockets. They very easily could switch with the Warriors. I just think it's a lot of young guys. You still have to figure out who's in what role, establish your hierarchy, things like that. Could possibly see some of the young guys traded. Maybe it's a 3-for-1 or something like that, right? If you get that, obviously, then I would expect this team to be a little bit higher up in the standings, right? But as of right now, I think this is just the best place for them. The next team in this tier is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. This is kind of predetermining that Lowry Markkanen gets traded, right? I think if Lowry's still there, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz finish above the Spurs. But as of right now, I'm treating this as Lowry's going to be traded. I expect the jump from Victor. Obviously, I don't expect them to be any really much higher than this, honestly. You didn't go out and sign any big name free agents. You didn't go trade for a Garland or a Trae Young. You took the long-term approach. You understand this team's not made to compete right now. So I could see Victor sits out at times. Obviously, Chris Paul's not going to play a full season. And I think Chris Paul is there more for a mentor role. So maybe he's only playing 15, 20 minutes a game. And maybe he plays, say, 50 to 60 games, right? So I think all in all, I think this is about where the Spurs finish. The last team, again, for variance is the Utah Jazz. The reason they are here is just I'm, again, expecting Lowry Markkanen to be traded. If he is not traded, though, obviously they probably will finish above the Spurs. But again, I don't expect much more out of them. You really are kind of a one-star show with Lowry and a bunch of really good role guys. Maybe it's the heat of the West, right, where Will Hardy's a good enough coach where he can take guys that maybe aren't top-tier talent, and it still piles on a bunch of wins and they finish higher than this. I think this is about where they fall, right? Last team is, again, Cooper Flag or bust. That would be the Portland Trailblazers. Not necessarily like they have a really bad roster like Brooklyn. It's just you're out west, so you're playing a bunch of these Western Conference teams. You're playing OKC multiple times. You're playing the T-Wolves, the Nuggets, etc., 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 multiple times. You're playing less of the East teams. And so just based off of that, it would lead me to assume that you finish with probably one of the worst records. I'd say them and Brooklyn are probably a pretty solid lock for being two of the three teams to finish with a bottom three record in the NBA. But yeah, that is my thoughts. If you guys have any thoughts, make sure to comment below. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.